Where do I begin? One Punch Man 88. The chapter doesn't have a title name as I can see because I can't read Japanese, but for now I'm going to call it One Punch Man chapter 88 Limits. Until I can find an actual name for it, that's what it's going to be, and when I get the actual name of it, I will pop it in I'll pop it on the thumbnail so people know. In any case, wow. A lot of information this chapter. Was this a good chapter? Absolutely, it was fantastic. I had accepted in my heart, I was like, we never have to learn the truth about how Saitama got so strong. Like, we'll never have to fully see it. And I accept that. Like, it's funnier if that's just the truth. If he did his 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and 10k run. And that's it, and that's all he did, and he got super strong. But, let's talk about the chapter first. So the chapter starts off where we ended off last week with Garo, Tario, Raw Ripper, and Bug God. Raw Ripper and Bug God have just come out and they've like, you know, you're not a real monster. There's no way we can accept you. And Raw Ripper's very threatening the kid, and Garo's like, it's trying to protect him. And the first thing they pretty much say to him is like, you're a disgrace. How can you do this? And Bug God even steps up and calls him out a bit and goes, you know, we are the Monster Association. Our job is like, you know, we abandoned our humanity. If you can't kill this kid, because Raw Ripper calls him out and says, kill the kid then. Kill that kid right now. Because he says, if you can't kill a kid, you're not a monster. And that's understandable because it's back to what I was saying at the end of the last review, which was basically Garo killing, this is going to be his main transformation, I think, was show that he's definitely a monster and he's not, you know, he can't be redeemed, is when he kills the kid. Because obviously Tario is the closest human relation he's got at this point. And, you know, obviously the most innocent thing in the world generally is a kid. So, if he kills this kid, it's like, okay, that's it, he's gone. Or if he keeps sparing the kid, I'm like, okay, Garo has a chance of redemption still. He still has that chance. In any case, as this is all going on, but something quickly to note as well is when they're talking to Garo, like, you know, how can you're not even that strong? You lost that plain-looking hero over there. So at the very least, we can learn Raw Ripper and Bug God. Honestly, they're not that strong. I'm not saying that they're weak, but I mean in comparison to truly strong opponents. Because as we know, truly strong opponents can recognize Saitama's strength. Opponents like Boros and Carnage Kabuto, when they saw him, they were like, you're strong, I recognize this, you're different. If they just see him as a plain-looking hero, it's very different. And I suppose it'll be interesting to see like who the strong ones are in the Monster Association who see Saitama and go like, I can't beat him. Like, this is not a fight. And sure, monsters are fueled by, like, their negative emotions, but still, I think it's going to be really cool to see that, at least. But at the very least, we know, like, they're nothing special. So I'm okay, so I think Garo can take them. This was beforehand. And then Tario, obviously, is terrified. And it's understandable. I mean, the kid's wet himself. I'd wet myself in that situation. It's terrifying. And Garo gives this great speech to him where he's like, get rid of that book. You've got to move now. It's not a choice. You know, people won't help you in situations like this if you can't help yourself. You know, you must be strong for moments like this. And Garo's obviously speaking, I suppose, from experience with his past, and, you know, people won't help him if he wasn't strong or cool or popular is what he saw. So things like that also happen here. So he's like, Tario, get up! Go! And at that point, and I think that's actually going to be really important for Tario, because obviously Tario starts to really look up to Garo a lot now, and maybe this is something that's going to come back to the future, and this is going to be Tario's moment, where at the end of this whole Monster Association arc, and whenever Saitama and Garo have their fight, it depends. So maybe Hero's going to go to finish off Garo, or maybe Saitama's going to go to finish off Garo when he's in his monster form, and Tario's going to be the one to jump in and stop him and go like, don't do this, and that might buy them a moment for Garo to escape. Or if it's against Saitama, I think Saitama will understand and go, yeah, that's fine, you're not a monster then, that's okay, and he'll just walk off and try and do whatever he needs to do. I don't know, probably go shopping. So, as when Raw Ripper though lunges and he grabs the blade, whoof, and kicks her straight in. I don't know if Raw Ripper's a guy or a girl. I see mostly in translations it's a guy, and I get that. It's just because of the design. It reminds me of a lot of like, I think it's The Ring, the horror monster. And so I'm gonna call it a girl, but if it's a guy, let me know down below in the comments, and I'll change that from now on. and like sends her flying. When she's got the mangled arms, she's like twists them back around. I was like, that's pretty creepy. But I was looking forward to it because like, yes, Goro versus Royal Ripper, here we go. I'm so ready for this. And Bug God joins in too. He's like, I knew it, you're not a real monster. We can't let someone like you live. You can't be a true monster. You're probably quite weak. And Goro goes all out from the beginning because straight away he's like, you piss me off. And he takes the water flowing rock crushing style, which he hates to use, but it is his strongest techniques at the end of the day. So those two lunging at him and him being ready to fight was an awesome panel, and the fight in general was really good. So then we learned some pretty cool things, don't we? So we then cut to Zombie Man, as it was revealed in the cover art, which I loved, and it spoiled kind of what the chapter was going to be about. I knew Saitama was going to come up in the conversation because Genos and Zombie Man were talking, like, obviously he was in the background, and obviously Genos knows about Saitama, and Zombie Man, I think was after Gorilla, or what? So, so he followed Armored Gorilla because he saw him beat, Commando Kong? I'm probably wrong with that. Marshall Kong, I think, yeah, it's Marshall Kong. And he's like observing the buildings, like no one's coming in or out. I can smell a lot of rotten supplies, and he's being super detective. And I like seeing the other S-Class heroes, especially someone like Zombie Man, who we haven't really seen before. I know a lot of people really like him. I don't know why at this point. He's cool. But apart from that, it's just interesting to learn about him. And as he goes into this detail, as he's exploring as he's been tracking him, he's like, he comes to this conclusion, like, you know, Shiba Bauer, yeah, I think it's Shiba Bauer. Shiba Bauer's prophecy about the world ending and the rise of the Monster Association. It's all about you, isn't it? House of Evolution. And then he's got a history with him, which was actually really cool, and it links the world together a bit nicer. And I'd like to see a bit more stuff like that. So I think, for example, I don't know if Gamagori is alive. I don't think so, but he might be. If, like, he had a relationship, because obviously his goal was to be the strongest, if at that point the strongest in bodybuilding was someone like Dark Alloy, that I just think would be, like, a cool connection, too. Like, a lot of small connections like that could be really interesting in this arc, if, like, previous villains somehow have connections to heroes and their backstories, or, like, how the connections to current villains, like in the Monster Association, have connections to the heroes. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I forgot to talk about Orochi. Yeah. Yeah, so, Orochi, by the way, wow. So, before this whole Zombie Man thing, we learn about, it cuts to Phoenix Man and Gyoro. Phoenix Man walks in on Gyoro when Gyoro is meditating, and, you know, they start having a little conversation, and Gyoro's trying to avoid, and he's, like, playing a bit coy at first. He's like, oh, no, well, I sent Bug God and Royal Ripper because they're such good friends. Who knows, maybe they'll all get along together. And then Phoenix Man's like, stop it, you know that's not it. Why, to observe Garo, are we sending two combat specialists? Especially Royal Ripper, someone who is so psycho, other monsters won't go near him, her. Yeah. And Gyoro is like, oh, well, it's all for Garo. And maybe Gyoro, it seems like Gyoro purposely sent Royal Ripper and Bug God to go after Garo because they knew they'd end up fighting, and it's their way of proving Garo is like a monster or is strong, or to make Garo grow. Because as we learn, he's like, Phoenix Man, just quickly about Phoenix Man, maybe he's got some core connection to Garo, not like in a previous tense, but maybe he starts to care about him a bit, only because he's the monster who's interacted with Garo the most, and he sees like the potential in him. Obviously he saved him from Elder Centipede, but I think he might be a bit, because obviously he spent a lot of time with Garo. It's like, why did you send them after him if you think they're not going to get along? And so we learn as Gyoro puts, he's like, do you know where Orochi-sama came from? And he's like, no, probably some ancient being or something like that. And we learn that Gyoro created Orochi. What the fuck? Seriously? Because, like, how? Like, I think that speaks a lot more about Gyoro. Like, Orochi is a monster. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's massive. He's a big threat, without a doubt. But I suppose it speaks a lot more for Gyoro because, as they say, Orochi used to be human, and through a lot of twisted, like, experiments, like trials, fails, he eventually got to someone who could be Orochi. I would love so much to know who became Orochi. Now, this idea popped into my head. I think it's probably going to be wrong, but when was the last time we saw Blast? We barely shows up, and a really strong monster shows up. I think it's too much of a stretch to say Blast is Orochi. I think even though I'm like, hang on, I doubt that, especially because of how much they hype up Blast. Is like, oh yeah, he's the #1 S-class hero, and you know he beat El Centipede a couple years ago, and everything like that. And you're like, whoa, Blast is amazing. He sounds amazing, and they just go, nah, he's gone. But it wouldn't surprise me if One Punch Man did something like that. Like, oh, you see this character you're really looking forward to? Yeah, nah, he's not here. I still think Blast is probably not it, but that was one of the first thoughts that popped into my head when I started thinking about who Orochi was. But I would love a side story, or a side series even, if they did it, on how, like, the person who eventually became Orochi. Because that is so interesting to me, how, like, Goro molded this probably average person to an absolute monster. And as he says, Goro said that Goro he sees as a potential second Orochi, but he's trying to train him up and get him right. Because he's like, if he fails, then he fails, and he just wasn't meant to be it. But he at least sees the potential in Goro to become this massive monster, which obviously speaks volumes about Goro. If basically the brains behind the Monster Association is saying, yeah, he can become the next Orochi, with how powerful Orochi is. But damn. It's just Goro. I will keep more of an eye out for him. I thought at first like it'd be more like a Boros and I can't remember his name, the octopus squid from the Invasion arc. Pop it down there. But I'm glad it's not. It's different and it's good. Let me double check. So Zombie Man goes to break into the House of Evolution's new base, and he's like, "Your time is over, House of Evolution." Armored Gorilla answers. Whenever I know he's got a voice actor and everything, but in my head now, because I play so much Overwatch, it's just Winston now. And he's like, "Oh, hey, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, the House of Evolution, it was annihilated quite a while ago." Then just Zombie Man's reaction phase, like, ah, it was great. Then we cut to Zombie Man and Dr. Genis having tea. And this is where we learn of the relationship of Experiment 6-6, where Zombie Man was created because he was an experiment at the House of Evolution to create an immortal being. And basically he destroyed everything and escaped and became the S-class hero Zombie Man. And Genis is kind of proud of him. He's like, yeah, well, that's actually quite good. It's amazing to hear that my creation became someone as renowned as an S-class hero. And before he carries on, Zombie Man pulls an axe out of nowhere. I imagine he's got an axe there. The common thing I see him with is a gun. So hopefully maybe he's got like a cool like amount of weapons. Obviously with being immortal, as it's pretty much confirmed, it will be amazing to see like what he does in a fight. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Zombie Man can do. And before Zombie Man goes to swipe at him, Genis is like, "If you want to kill me, I understand." But he basically says, because think about it, Matt. One sec. So, as Genis goes, I'm done with my life. I'm happy with the life I lived. I don't have a purpose anymore. And this is where Zombie Man starts to question, like, why did you disband the House of Evolution? You know, as long as you're alive, you can rebuild it as many times as you want. What caused you to just give up on it? Because he showed up. My research was lost because it didn't matter what I did, it couldn't stand up to him. Because he had removed his limiter. What? Okay, so this was really super duper important. Because I wonder who... It's Saitama. No, don't even do this, Matt. It's Saitama. So, Genis then goes into the details of how monsters become the monsters, and the biological stuff that goes into that humans are made of, and limiters, and abilities, and what? And yes, okay, calm it down. Genis starts explaining how monsters are made, and it's really interesting because he goes, you know, there's multiple ways a monster can be made. So well, first of all, he starts explaining about limiters. The first thing he explains is, you know, humans have limiters to them. Their whole purpose is to make sure people grow at a steady pace and don't exceed their limitations. Everyone has a limit, and it makes sure that everyone can reach him. And this whole time while he's explaining, the Garo, Royal Ripper Bug God fight's going on, and that's really amazing. When so it's in the subtle details that I have to go like, oh wow, his shell's super sturdy. We can tell from when Garo punches Bug God and it does nothing, and his fist is damaged, that Bug God has a super sturdy shell. So that amazing moment as well when Royal Ripper is like charging him with all the blades, and he's just dodging and deflecting, and the moment he starts deflecting at Bug God to try and get a hit on him, I was like, that's really clever. But then Bug God goes like, boo, hammer arms him down, and then they send him flying. Of course, as this all is going on, the limiter stuff's being explained, and that panel where obviously he goes flying, like he has the electric shock, goes flying back, they charge at him, and then you just got the two silhouettes of Bug God and Royal Ripper against the silhouette of Garo charging at each other. Loved it. That was fantastic. Oh yeah, that was nice. And as Genis goes into detail, he goes on to explain how, no one should ever, ever, ever be able to remove his limiter. But somehow he did. And the way Zombie Man talks about it, he speaks more like it's a theory more than anything. Like it's something that, he's like, so he's kind of like, so if someone was to remove one's limiter, they could attain a massive amount of strength at no cost. And it sounds like he doesn't believe that there's an actual person out there who would do this, despite the seriousness of Dr. Genis and the way he is. It's incredible. Like, Zombie Man, I thought you were smart. At least kind of understand, like, this man has no reason to lie. Sure, he did a lot of bad things to you, so maybe you're a bit judgmental about it. Yeah, but still, he goes, no, there was a cost. The man had become bald, and at the price of such power, after defeating my strongest monster, the strongest monster I ever made in a single punch, he has been left with alienation of being alone with that strength. And even after all this, Zombie Man doesn't believe him. He doesn't believe. He's like, yes, there are people like that already who remove their limiters. They're called heroes. People who obtain the strength to fight and defeat monsters without being monsters themselves are called heroes. And Genis is still trying to explain to him, he's like, no, there is dimensions between that kind of power. As we've seen, we know, no one's stronger than Saitama. And he goes into detail on how monsters are made. And there are multiple ways. So one way he mentions is, a negative reaction in the brain. An reaction in the brain combined with negative thoughts. And these can be to do with desires, desires or other negative emotions. Which explains to me why someone like Gamugori, who I thought personally wasn't that bad of a guy. He was just someone who wanted to become the strongest in the world. He had a desire and growth. But if it was more like a thingy, what's the word? But if it's more of an inferiority, if it's a complex more than anything, that he's like, I need to do this, and it's an explosion of negative emotions, then that's why you transform into a monster. That makes sense to me. Others are environmental factors. So, for example, someone like Vaccine Man, who is all about the environment. I know it's not like to do with that kind of thing, but it's all to do with like the kind of situation you're in can cause you to become a monster. And of course, there's monster cells which Dr. Genis doesn't know about, it's something we know about, and there's other ways. For example, human alterification, like he did himself. But he basically makes it clear there's always different ways to become a monster, but that is not breaking a limiter. There are aliens, the aliens that attacked A City, and the monsters that attacked J City, the Sea Folk. They are natural creatures from the beginning, and as such are the natural enemies of humans, but they have not broke a limiter. There are humans out there with natural talent or hard work who become heroes who are outstanding, and there are some that have mechanical parts, and have some that even have special abilities like psychic powers. And the whole time this is going on, you just got great art of all these different characters who represent what it is. So you've got all the various one-off monsters that we see for the first ones. Then we have like the aliens, and obviously we get big ones of Boros and Sea King, and then we see a list of heroes, and but he was different. He had nothing special about him whatsoever. Ordinary birth, ordinary life, through hard work and effort alone, he broke his limiter. Now, I want to start by saying, this is one of the reasons I love Saitama so much, and why he is he's my favourite superhero ever. Because, I suppose a lot of heroes these days, they're all about either, they're an alien, or they're a god, or they're a billionaire, or they've got something really special about them to start off with before they get their powers. Even, even characters like that are supposed to be relatable, like Peter Parker, Spider-Man, he had, even though he's like, oh, I'm just a standard nerd guy, yes, but he's also super smart. Characters like Captain America, sure, he was super wimpy, he's the closest thing I can compare to Saitama, but still, he was super wimpy, and he had he was outstanding in that way, and eventually just became, became super muscly, and that was his transformation. And even like shonen heroes, a lot of them have like chosen one prophecies and things like that. And this is why I love Saitama, because he's the representation of an average person, nothing special about him whatsoever, working their absolute hardest to do what they want to do. He had nothing apart except a sense of like heroism, and it really just nails in the fact that the whole point is anyone can become a hero. And this character shows it better than anyone. Sure, his powers are far-fetched, but we're all normal people who have a lot of us have just normal lives. So when he does stuff like this, it solidifies how much I love him. He's truly my favourite. It makes me smile. And the art was incredible. It's him, bloodied but working hard, and then that panel, that page of him with his fist, like just in that angle. It was, and the whole time, Zombie Man doesn't get it. And like I said, there is still a part that this could not be true. There is still that small chance. But if anyone is right about this, it is Dr. Genius, a man who studied human evolution his whole life, a man who reversed his own age, a man who has created monsters beyond belief, who's cloned himself, who's done the impossible so many times, has managed to do this. The only thing I don't like about this is the only thing, is because of my love for Saitama 2. He's so great, but because he's my favourite hero, I'm like, yes, I want him to achieve his goals, but if his power is limitless, he has to find someone else who's broken his limiter to fight. So that's kind of the bar. So until we know someone who's certainly broken a limiter, and like I said, there's still a small chance it could be wrong until we see maybe there's a moment in Saitama's life where the limiter broke. And if it was anything, it could have been back when he fought the personification of the electric light cord. That's the only person I could think of, because obviously he was starting to go through the change before then. In any case, he was like, oh, day 100 of my training, I'm going well, and he's like running faster than cars at that point, and like leaving footprints in the ground. But it's only because I remember at that point something snapped inside of him, and his face changed to his goofy face. So if there is any moment, it's probably that. But I would like to see, honestly, just for that confirmation for me, so I can that's the moment where my boy became a boy, is just that moment where, the limiter snapped. If it was anything, I think it's that moment, but in any case, let me double check on some stuff. So that's my rant about Saitama and why I love him. So as he says, the strength to defy limiters, once you've broken a limiter, your strength defies common sense. So much that even a genius like me seems pitiful in comparison. There's no point, there's no point in me doing this because I can't beat him. If I was to continue doing this, I would lose over and over. And it's weird that a villain actually accepts defeat, because most of them are like, I'll get you next time. But he's actually like, no, I accept my loss, and I have to move on. And Zombie Man finds it tough to believe. And even though he goes maybe that's gonna be super interesting. Is in this whole fight if Zombie Man spots Saitama, is he goes I hear he's working as a hero as well, so you'll probably bump into him one day. So maybe that's something Zombie Man's going to keep his eye out for, although Zombie Man doesn't seem to believe him. And that's just a nice little touch at the end, just like a little joke, was when he's like, why a takoyaki-san? He's like, surprisingly we have an unlimited amount of octopus tentacles, so... That just made me laugh. It was just like, after such a serious, big discussion, just change it to something completely small and insignificant. But at least it answers the question for us. Yeah. So, as we go back to the fight with Goro, Bug God, and Royal Ripper, we see that basically they're both kind of standing there evenly matched, and then they're starting to go, oh, you're strong, we better get serious too. And then Goro's just standing there in his pose, and he's like, I can beat these guys, and he's quite confident. Sure, he's maybe a bit too overconfident at times. He's like, oh, just got to beat these guys, and that's all we got to do. But I'd like to believe when Goro says, I can beat them, I believe him in that. He's like, these are nothing compared to Bang, which I also believe, because really, if Bang, obviously, Bang is one of the greatest martial artists in the world, and he's top S class, he's in the top 3 for S class, it speaks a lot about his skills. And I think in a similar situation, basically with this fight against Royal Ripper and Bug God, he can take down Royal Ripper. I believe he could do that no problem. It's just Bug God's armor that's the problem more than anything. If he can find a way around that, I'm sure he can do it. It's just thinking of a way to pierce through the armor. that Bug God has. In any case, before the fight carries on, we see that I better stop the timer just for video editing. Okay. So before the fight carries on, everyone just kind of stops because I was so excited to see Goro win. Also that awesome moment where, like, you know, we'll get serious too, and he's like, fine, carry on if you want, and spits out his tooth and it leaves like a little crate on the ground, and he's like, because you'll never hit me again with those moves. And I was like, yes, I'm ready for this, I'm ready for this. But I wasn't ready for that when Tario rolled back up, caught by the slime jellyfish monster, who Goro took down back when he was fighting Melbat, and then he was going to go after, I forgot her name, Melbat's little sister, pop it down below. And he stopped him from going after her. So he's like, I've got business with this guy. And he's like, put the kid down! He has no moment! Before he pretty much finishes his sentence, Roaripper comes and carves up his back and everything, and then Bug God leaves like a final punch and leaves him down there. And Roaripper's very happy with herself, like, no, let's just go like good friends do. And they've caught Tario, and here's the thing. The chapter ends here, where Goro defeated on the ground, and Bug God, Roaripper, Sludge Jellyfish, and Tario all walking off back to the Monster HQ. Now, I feel like they were setting up something very important. So, there are 3 possibilities of how the next chapter could go. Number 1, let's talk about the least likely, in my opinion. Goro's going to get back up, and he's going to beat them. He's like, oh, that was nothing. Is that all you got? He's going to boom and bat and save the kid. In that case, if he beats them, Royal Ripper, Bug God, and Sludge Jellyfish are all going to be killed, and then it'll be more evidence for Goro to show the Monster Association. This is why we need this guy. He took down 2 demon class monsters and this Sludge Jellyfish guy. I don't know what rank he is. I think he might be Tiger. He might possibly be Demon too. In any case, and then everyone will be like, yeah, we can't disagree with that. Okay? Number 2, Saitama shows up, and because he's still in the area somewhere, and he's like, hey, I got you. Bop, bop, bop. And then he'll save him. Goro will get the credit once again, and the same scenario will happen now. Now, I think there was a reason as to why they were setting up all this monster information at this point, and here's the thing. So Goro, at this point in time, is under a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, a lot of negative emotions coming out here, you know? And it's also part of this desire to save the kid. You know, when backed into, as they've made clear, environmental issues, when backed into a corner, someone could turn into a monster. When someone's under a lot of stress and pressure, and like a lot of negative emotions, like the helplessness of not being able to save Tario, that could turn him into a monster. I think, to me, Goro, I've been wondering when Goro's going to finally get to like a monster form, or at least the beginning, because obviously as we saw when he fought Bang Bomb and Genos, is when he was backed into a corner, he got a massive strength boost. I think it could be something similar to this, where, you know, he starts to fully, like he's slowly, like maybe his other eye goes black or something, or along those lines, and his monster transformation is becoming more and more apparent. Maybe he won't go full monster, because I think that'd be overkill, because I think, honestly, we won't probably see that until, like, he ends up fighting Saitama, but I think we're getting to that point there. In any case, I think, most likely, for me, in my opinion, I think Goro will probably start to become more and more monstrous, starting from next chapter. Because that's what all this information was about, pretty much, like, showing us all the signs that Goro's going to become a monster. There's a lot in this chapter, and I really enjoyed it. I liked learning about Saitama's past, well, like, Saitama's probably, like, I'm calling like a 98% shot of that being why Saitama's got his abilities. If not, yeah, I like that. The whole Goro Roaripper fight was interesting, and of course Zombie Man. I wish Zombie Man took Dr. Genius a little more seriously, considering of like how much of a high position Dr. Genius was in before he met Saitama, and you know, obviously creating such powerful monsters and, you know, actual real threats to the Hero Association. Not as much as the Monster Association, but when you look back at it in comparison, they were pretty damn tough, you know? But yeah, overall, I think that's all I gotta say. Yeah, that's what I thought of it. It was a good chapter. And the fight was good, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next time. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked this review. If you did, give it a like down below. What did you think of the chapter? Please comment. I'd like to really talk about this one, especially with how much information was here. And yeah, subscribe if you want to see more One Punch Man reviews. Because, oh boy, old Matt, as good as it is, Matt just keeps thinking it's going to get better and better from here. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Music, yeah. I'm still
after telling